Oh, geez.
Huh?
So we'll be a minute or so late. No worries.
Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Stevenson, hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted, how are you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
Doing great now that we're actually live. We've been fake live for 5 minutes, but not really. Someone forgot to hit another button. Uh, not mention any names, Dave. Um, so with that, we're gonna jump in. We're gonna be talking about the Player's Handbook 2024. We're moving on to Fighter, and I think me and you we kind of have like similar reactions.
Yeah. So, like, with all the classes so far, I've been kind of like starting off with, "Hey, I'm really impressed with the start of the class flavor text." There wasn't anything jaw dropping or all inspiring this time around. But it does, kind of call out that, there are a variety of ways to be a fighter, just like all the other ones, whether you want to go with, multiple weapons, one weapon, archery, there's they still are trying to make sure they are giving you the style options that are out there.
The fighter does what it's supposed to do. It fights.
Indeed.
The fighter is supposed to be like kind of the Swiss Army knife on the battlefield, although rarely do people play them that way. But again, it's just starting right off. You know, we get second wind and we get two uses instead of one. The only difference is you don't get them all back after a short rest, but you have more than you had before anyway. So it's a
Right.
wash because after you short rest, you still get one back. On a long rest, you get them all back. So that's kind of cool.
You
Uh,
get your fighting style, you get your weapon masteries,
well, it's the
which you
thing.
start off being able to have three.
Yeah, three. That's the most. They go all the way up to six. The barbarian starts with two and goes up to four. Both the paladin and the ranger, they start off with two, and that's all they ever get.
Right.
So
Um,
they are the best They have the best weapon master.
which would make sense. They are the master of weapons. The second wins, they actually cap out at four. As stated, you regain one on a short rest and then the rest on a long. And we'll get into this later, but they've kind of made second wind better by giving you other things that you can do with it as well. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten better. Action surge is the same, except it calls out you cannot use that action to use the magic action, which means you can no longer cast two fireballs in the same round anymore if you happen to multi-class into two levels of fighter.
By raw. I'm certain that there's going to be DMs out there that are going to allow it.
Yeah, that's some of the things were like unintended consequences that they didn't realize until there was more gameplay that would come up.
Now, I will touch on second wind. Did it used to be plus your fighter level before? I thought it was plus your con mod.
No, it was your fighter level. It's always been that.
Okay. I have not played a ton of fighters,
Yeah.
um, and what have you. So I thought it was con mod. So seeing plus, your fighter level, I'm like, oh, this is nice. But
Yeah. And next up we have tactical mind, and this is the foreshadowing you gave. So now when you fail an ability check, you can expend a use of your second wind to push yourself towards success rather than regaining hit points. You roll a d10, add the number rolled to the ability check, potentially turning it into a success, which is also cool if you're going with a dice manipulator character because now you have this other use you can use.
indeed.
Oh, and also if the check still fails, you don't use your second wind. You don't expend it.
That capability is absolutely amazing. Uh I love a resource that failure isn't spent. Is a great new mechanic that I hadn't seen, in too many games.
Yeah, I will say 2024 is a lot more. Well, 5e in general is a lot more carrot than stick, but 2024 moves even further away from the stick. Uh,
Right.
Another new ability you get at fifth level is tactical shift. Whenever you activate second wind with a bonus action, you can move half your speed without provoking attacks of opportunity. Now fighters are just a lot more mobile on the battlefield. Whether you need the hit points or whether you need to move or maybe both, you now have that option.
Next up is Indomitable, and holy crap, this is definitely gone for a massive upgrade. If you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll with a bonus equal to your fighter level. You have to use a new roll, and you can't use a feature again until you finish a long rest. You get another use at 13th level and 3 per day at 17th.
This is one of my
So
favorite changes because having played a high level fighter, generally you're gonna have to reroll those saves for things you're not good at. And inevitably what would happen is like I found my save, I use Indomitable. I found my save again. Right? Like I have to roll a 17 or an 18, I have a +1 to the roll because it's like Dex or something. Uh and also know what's really cool about this from the player standpoint, not so much the DM's perspective. But one of my favorite things to do when you have really powerful characters that are specced out in the group, especially the martial type, is to mind control them and be like, "Good, now you're the party's problem. Hey, you fuckers deal with it, right? Welcome to my world." And now the fighter is like, "Yeah, you should save that shit for the barbarian." So
So Indomitable actually now is as the word implies. It's like, no, you're not dominating me. So
yeah,
I
because you get to add
really,
your fighter level to. Maybe we didn't mention this part. You need to get to add your fighter level to the die roll. So you don't get it till ninth level, so you're starting at a +9 unless you have a penalty. But still, it's so much better than where you were before.
so like, a lot of times a fighter will, dump intelligence or charisma, and some of those things that, that they suck if you were to fail those saves. So you're like, nope, I'm gonna re-roll, and now I get a bonus on top of everything else. So
Yeah, and so I think
this
we
is
get so that was studied attack is our next ability that's new and has changed. You study your opponents and learn from each attack you make. If you make an attack roll against a creature you miss, you have advantage on your next attack roll against the creature before the end of your next turn, which is really awesome because the fighter also gets the most attacks in the game for the most part. So if once you fail a roll, you're just kind of setting yourself up for success on the next one.
Yeah, so like, okay, eventually they get 4 attacks. So it was like, okay, I miss advantage. I miss advantage. Like, because it
So
doesn't say once per turn, doesn't say once a round. It's just like, nope. If you miss your next attack roll, advantage.
all right, so base fighter is just base. It is good. I really enjoyed fighter in 5e to begin with, and now they just tweaked a couple things and made it a lot better. And in ways that are like I wouldn't say they're not game breaking, and like I feel like it was what they intended to do initially, but just fell a little short or a lot short in the case of Indomitable. So next up we have the subclasses. Battle Master, security dice maneuvers, it's all the same. Student of War is the same, but instead of just gaining a tool proficiency, you now gain a skill proficiency as well. So they made that a little bit better for the Battle Master. Another ability, Know Your Enemy, is conceptually the same, but mechanically much different. We should probably just read this one.
Yeah, so as a bonus action, you discern strengths and weaknesses of a creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. You know whether the creature has any immunities, resistance, or vulnerabilities. And if the creature has any, you know what they are. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. You can also restore use of this feature by expending 1 superiority die, no action required. So it's a bonus action as opposed to a minute of study,
Yep.
and it just deals with resistance, immunities, and vulnerabilities. Whereas before, it's like, oh, well, you could learn hit points and armor class,
If they had fighter
and
levels.
so like it was very wonky. And given the fact that most NPCs don't have class levels, knowing if they had levels in fighter was kind of a weird one. And like I had seen a number of DMs, kind of get hiccuped over this ability because like they weren't really paying attention to the battle master had this ability, or the player worded something wrong and it's like, I know how many hit points it has, or
Yeah.
whatever. So it it has definitely been clunky in games that I've either watched or been a part of in some way, shape, or form. So I kind of like this one better. It's more streamlined for both the player and the DM.
Yeah, and also like they're like, what do you do in D&D? You pretty much fight. So we'll just make it a combat ability, 100%. For better or worse. But again, the other thing, you ended up trying to use it that way anyway, but it was like harder to use. Next up, we have Relentless, same name, but it's a lot different. Used to regain one use of superior die if you had one when you roll initiative. Now it's much better, and we should probably just read it.
This when I read this, I had to read it 3 times because holy shit, I was like, this is too powerful. Once per turn, when you use a maneuver, you can roll a d8 and use the number rolled instead of expending a superiority die. So every turn at 15th level, you can just use a maneuver for free at a lower level die than what you're actively using.
So real quick, Sam wants to know: would you call that busted the new version of Know Your Enemy? I don't think so. Uh, it's hardly game breaking. They're going to know anyway, and the player still has to kind of know whether to use it or not. Um, and you have limited uses, right? So the first time the wizard casts Fireball and it's immune to fire, guess what? You guys figured it out, you know. Uh, so I don't think it may save a resource here and there if you use this resource, but also knowing when to use it. And I guess it's really super useful if if you're facing off a creature like demons that have a lot of resistances and immunities. You get
Mm-hmm.
that list, boom, but it still falls on the player to know when that happens. I mean, you could do some role player to throw some flavor text in there that you might have to think about in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, in my games, I don't really. It wouldn't hurt my feelings and bother me that much.
For a an enemy that is a like a thorn in your side, someone who keeps coming back, and knowing the stuff they have, sure, that could be considered problematic. But for a standard combat where like you fight the thing now and it's done and it's over with, like, who, to me, I don't really care. But sure, there could be times where someone having this could be frustrating, especially as low level as 7th.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna, it didn't phase me. I'm like, oh my god, they've got this super awesome ability. To me, the relentless was like the holy shit.
And frankly, in a lot of our games, we would allow the players with knowledge skills to roll them and figure
Mm-hmm.
some stuff out anyway if they rolled well enough.
Right.
So to me, it's on par with that. Then from there, we just kind of get into the maneuvers, which they're basically the same. There might be slight wording changes, but for the most part, they're the same. A lot of them now can work with um, uh, any weapon attack or unarmed strike. It's kind of worded that way. Although there's a couple call outs that I kind of picked up on that I would mention, and that is at 15th level, ambush, commanding presence, and tactical assessment all become awesome choices for the fighter because they're all skills, or they're all things that allow you to use your superiority die to be better at doing skills or rolling initiative. And even if you could use the higher die that you now have access to, or you can drop that die 8 and just always have that bonus. So I feel like that's going to be kind of a cool thing for the fighter. I mean, it's late game, so whatever. But lunging attack combined with the charger feat is freaking awesome. Charger feat gives you an extra 10 feet of movement when you dash. You can dash as a bonus action with the lunging attack, and then they both do give you other combat options like damage or knocking things prone or back when you hit. So that's going to be a cool combination. And then another one, sweeping attack combined with the cleave weapon mastery is friggin' amazing. Basically, you can either attack your main opponent, the main target, and do a bunch of damage to a secondary target, or you could spread out damage amongst the three different targets essentially, and it doesn't
Sounds
require any extra action uses.
sounds like we got some killer combos in the works here, Dave.
Yeah, yeah. So they got the juices flowing. So, but all in all, Battle Master couple tweaks pretty much is going to play the same. Battle Master was one of the fun fighter subclasses to play anyway, and well, it still is. Next up, we
Heard
got
of it.
next up we got Champion. I would say of all of them, Champion got the biggest overhauls. And also I like the Champion anyway. It was just easy, jump in there and play. There was a couple things that were a little weird about it, and they fixed them. Improved
Indeed.
critical works the same as it did before. Remarkable Athlete used to be a 7th level ability, and it was kind of weird because basically it gave you half proficiency bonus to certain skills that as a fighter you probably were trained in most of them anyway. So it wasn't that useful, but you would also get, that bonus to initiative. So that was kind of cool, but it's conceptually the same but much different. We should probably just read this one.
So thanks to your athleticism, you have advantage on initiative rolls and strength athletic checks. In addition, immediately after you score a critical hit, you can move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. So all in all, awesome things to always have advantage on initiative and strength checks or strength
Yeah.
athletics checks. But to also be able to be more mobile on the battlefield is always a great thing.
You get to truly be a champion on the battlefield.
7th level's an additional fighting style.
Which you got before, but you just had to wait till 10th. So
10th level's warrior.
yeah,
This was another one that I read, and I'm like, are you serious, dude?
the heroic warrior ability, the thrill of battle drives you towards victory during combat. You can give yourself heroic inspiration whenever you start your turn without it. So that's crazy. Like you just have an advantage to throw out there every round. And since it's heroic inspiration, you don't necessarily have to use it for yourself.
Yes. So I was amazed at that. Like the fact that it's like, oh, the human, if you're human and you go into combat, you can give it to yourself. Like, no, I'm a champion. I always have it, bitch.
Yeah, and when you think about it as the fighter who gets advantage after he misses too, uh, so like you can have advantage left and right.
I want all the advantage.
Superior critical, you get that later on, which is exactly the same. Survivor, which is kind of like their capstone ability, which was decent before. And you still get the same abilities you got before. Which was, the way it worked before, the heroic rally aspect of it. At the start of your turn, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your constitution modifier if you are bloodied and have at least 1 hit point. So if you are at half your hit points or lower, you basically regenerate. That got that before, you still get it. But in addition to that, you get Defy Death, which means you get advantage on death saves. But this gets even better. Because usually, I'm usually not a super fan of things that you have to use, like, after something bad happens, like knocked unconscious. But in this case, if you do go down, you basically crit a death save on an 18 through 20, meaning you get back up with 1 hit point, which is super cool. And also, you're rolling that with advantage, so your chances of doing that become significantly higher.
So what is it, like close to 30%? Well, it's 15% per die. So however, whatever that math works out to be.
Yeah. And also, if you think about it, right, you can also give yourself heroic inspiration when you're down, because there is no condition on that. You just have to start the round without it.
Mhm.
And unless there's rules about rolling, using heroic inspiration on a death save, you can then have a third shot at trying to crit it.
So heroic inspiration, if you have heroic inspiration, you can expend it to re-roll any die immediately after rolling it. You must use the new roll. If you gain heroic inspiration but already have it, it's lost. You give it to another player character who lacks it.
So,
So
right, you roll with advantage and like, oh, you know what? I don't like this one of these dies. Re-roll that one and fish for those crits. And you're also
yeah,
unconscious or down. What else are you going to do with it?
that is entirely true. So three dice you could possibly do, uh, and go for broke to try and get that crit to stand back up. And then once you stand back up, you start regenerating again.
And then you start regenerating. So, and then you can use your second wind to like get further away from that danger, so you can regenerate even more. So, Eldritch Knight is mostly the same, but there are a couple tweaks, and they're important ones. First and foremost, they used to have a school limitation for the spells they could take. They no longer have that. They can take any spells off the wizard's list. Um, they get an ability called War Bond, which was renamed from Weapon Bond. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. It's just basically they can bond to up to two weapons, and as a bonus action, they can summon them to them, which is more like a flavor thing. Oh, also, you can't be disarmed by any means when you're from your bonded weapon.
Correct.
Here's the ability that I really like is War Magic, and that is uh when
When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of the attacks with the casting of one of your wizard cantrips that has a casting time of an action.
yes. So that's super cool for different reasons. One, a lot of times cantrips scale, so they tend to do more damage, but there's also other instances like if you want to shock and grasp someone so that they don't get their attacks of opportunity. If you want to hit someone on the other side of the battlefield uh, while you're also fighting someone, you have those options. But more importantly, it used to be as an action you would cast your cantrip, and then as a bonus action you could make a weapon attack, which was lame. Um, this is a much better version. So you're a 20th level fighter, you can make three weapon attacks and then blast someone with one of your cantrips as well. But also, hear me out.
It gets better.
Well, a combo. I don't. It may not be worth it for everyone because it's like basically a once per day thing. But if you take meta magic adept, you can now quicken a spell and cast a spell as a bonus action. So a 20th level wizard could hurl. Well, you can hurl a fireball as your bonus action, cast a cantrip as part of your attack action, and then take three swings with your sword as well. So I thought that's fun. And also you get two meta magics to choose from. So, you can pick another one that only costs 1 point. So, you'd have a little bit of flexibility, but you'd only be able to do the quicken thing once per day, or, the other thing, twice per day.
Another combo.
Another combo. Eldritch Strike and Arcane Charge are exactly what they used to be. Um, Eldritch Strike is if you hit someone, they then have disadvantage on saves from your spells. Um, which again, that's going to be a little bit more useful when you combine it with your ability to hit something, cast a spell on it. So if you cast, something that requires a saving throw, now they don't have disadvantage on that saving throw. Um, Again, see meta magic combo, or just using the cantrip. Arcane Charge is when you use your action surge, you get to do a 30-foot teleport either before or after the second action, giving you a little bit more mobility on the back.
Uh, Lastly, it's improved war magic. Instead of casting a cantrip as one of your attacks, when you take the attack action, you can cast a level 1 or level 2 spell.
Which that is significantly better.
Indeed. I was pretty happy with it. It's a little sad that I can't be like strike, 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 fireball, but hey.
Almost, you're so close to the fireball. Yeah. That's why you need the magic adept trick.
Right. But
Because it could be fireball. Well, I don't think you get higher than third level spells. So you can't do anything cooler than that. But you do have fourth
uh
level spells, so you could do something with that.
so moving into our last of the subclasses, I was absolutely amazed to see Psy Warrior making the player's handbook. I was pleased as punch, as they say.
What were you thinking, Purple Dragon Knight?
I didn't know what to expect.
Uh,
Um, like I'm trying to just take my gut reactions as I'm going, not trying to figure it out or see what other people are talking about. But for the better part of a decade, we had fifth edition, and psionics have gotten very little play. And sure, there was a number of unearthed arcanas and some failed attempts and what have you.
well,
But
Cywarrior appeared in Tasha's, I believe.
yes, we got it in an official book, but it's different in my opinion, being in a splat book
Mm.
and being in the core book.
Okay. So right off the bat, Sonic Power, the only difference really is it used to be tied to your proficiency bonus. Um, and I think that was the main difference. Oh, no, before you take a bonus action to get one die back, but you can only do that once per day or once per short rest. Now you just get one back every time you take a short rest. Get them all back after a long rest. All the abilities for the Psy Warrior is essentially the same, other than that. Um, but again, this is like if you want to play your Jedi fighter, this is it. They get all the abilities that make them like Jedi.
Yeah, the side powered leap, the telekinetic thrust, the guarded mind. There's all of the things that you would expect to be able to do as a Jedi. You've got it.
So
Um,
I would say the funny thing about Fighter is like we just ran through the Fighter the quickest of all of them because they only made little tweaks, but the little tweaks they did were like super significant to how it's going to play mechanically. Thematically, everything is basically the same. They just like got rid of like the weirdness like of know your enemy, where it's like study for a minute, and Tally brought up, yeah, it could be cool for role playing stuff, and it did come up in our games, but not nearly as often as it's going to come up now.
right.
So I think they just try to balance like the usefulness of the abilities. Um, Unrelated, postmodern Heracles, Nerdarchy said, I saw you in BNN a few weeks ago. You the man. Excited to watch your zoo show you were telling me about.
Well, it was good running into you, and thanks for coming and checking out the stream. Uh,
Your zoo show.
well, I told him about Zoo Mafia, and I figured
I
that was the
know.
easiest way of him communicating.
Yeah, for sure. So you have any favorites here?
So I haven't played a Psy Knight or Psy Warrior. That was definitely something that I was definitely looking at. Um, but given the changes to the champion and what do you call it, Battle Master, I still think those two are the leading contenders for the best subclasses. Uh, they're just they're just so powerful. Like literally, they're being able to maneuver every round. Just like, yeah, you got to be 15th level, but it's like, holy crap, that's powerful.
Yeah, so I really I really want to like Eldritch Knight, and like always, and I think Uthan Gar was Eldritch Knight. Like I played that character,
Yeah.
from 1 through 20. He was
Hmm.
Eldritch Knight slash
War
War
Wizard.
Wizard. But again, like the bonded weapon now, War Bond is almost a useless ability. It's a ribbon ability, right? Like I would have liked to seen that improve a little bit. Like, even if they just gave it the pack weapon treatment and made it so that it was considered a magic weapon when you attack with it,
Right.
that would have been at least something. But it's not particularly great. But again, they get all the spells, so I imagine that's what they are. But I will say, war magic and improved war magic do help make up for that and make them a lot better. I did not play the higher levels of Eldritch Knight because I went mostly wizard. Because again, it's like generally if you can hit something with a stick or cast a spell at it, the
I was
spell
gonna
is
cast a spell.
the spell is generally better. Even
Yeah, at 20th level, you were a uh, sixth level fighter, 14th level wizard, and you were very much debating when it got time. How important was seventh level,
yep,
because you wanted that ability to cantrip and attack. And I'm like, well, I'll make it easy for you, and I incorporated that into a magic item that found its way towards you.
yeah.
uh
And honestly, like had it been worded like this, I wouldn't have to think about it. I've been like, oh, I'm taking that next level in
right.
fighter. Like this makes sense. The place where it would have gotten really tough is the place that it really gets tough would be at proved war magic, but at 18th level it doesn't matter. And
Yeah. At that point in time, like, I'm not a wizard, I'm a fighter.
yeah. And I think yeah, and also like you do eventually gain access to fourth level spells as Eldritch Knight, but at 19th level.
Right.
So it's like, okay, is haste fourth or
Third. Third.
so? I mean, I will say being able to haste yourself as a fighter is pretty sweet, but again, 13th level, so
Yeah.
give yourself one extra attack, a little better armor class, and some movement compared to like, let me nuke all the enemies for a decent amount of damage.
Yeah, it's tough.
No, it's not really. Nuke them. It's like is the best choice. Yeah,
I was being facetious when I said it's tough.
so I will say I want to love the Gish classes, man, but at the end of the day, man, when you map them out, I just don't think like you can do like these little one trick pony things where you're like, I can have a 40 armor class and you're never gonna hit me except for when you roll a 20 and it's gonna hurt a lot. Like which as an Eldritch Knight, that's not as bad because you have a lot of hit points. But say you're the Blade Singer and they hit you and they only can hit you because they got a 20. That's a lot different because that's half your hit points probably
Or more.
or more. Where the fire is, I got a bunch of hit points. I can second wind a bunch of times. I'll be all right.
So yeah, I mean, the gishes are a whole thing. And there's a reason people love them.
They're cool.
uh
Like
it-
thematically, it's cool. The idea is awesome. The imagery is freaking fantastic. But in play, the fighters are always better at fighting. The single class fighter or warrior classes are always better than Uthengar at fighting, and the full spellcasters were always casting way more powerful spells.
there were multiple times where you're like, okay, well, I've got those higher level spell slots and no spells to put in them, so looks like I'm casting a magic
Magic
missile
missile
at
at
ninth
ninth
level.
level.
Yeah.
And
9 die. Sorry, was it 12 die 4 or 11 die 4 plus 11?
it's three, and then what is it? One more for
One
every
more, yeah.
every spell slot above the first, so it's eight, so 11, right? And,
Yeah, so
and
11 die 4 plus 11.
I
Ooh.
will say, right, there was definitely one combat where I did that, and then I action surged and did it again
You did it with an
because
8.
yeah, because the thing we were fighting like could take damage from force, was nearly impossible to hit, and was making all of its saving throws. So I was like, screw it, just suck a ton of magic missiles.
It's like, all right, what's that? 11, 10. That's 21, 21 die 4. Go.
+1. But don't forget the +1, baby.
Plus 21.
Yeah, 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 and it still was not that much damage. It felt good to be effective, to feel like you're being effective after like failing saving throw or past saving throws and failed attack rolls.
Well, I mean, that particular character was good at taking damage and good at,
No,
sucking attacks
he
because he
was
had a
not.
high arm.
He was not good at taking damage. He didn't have that many hit points. I think the rogue had more hit points than me.
All right. Well, then he was at least good at taking attacks because he
Yeah,
had a really, really high armor class.
that yeah, that was the highlight. But and it was fun to play. Like it was fun to play. But when you like see it and play in the math, it's like, all right, these are fun. These concepts are more fun than they are mechanically sound. Which in my opinion, is a valid reason to play a character type.
100%. There are lots of times that I've made characters that are like, well, I don't care that this is not the best way to go. I want to do it because it fits the story, or I have a good, character concept here. Um, I played a paladin who dumped dexterity. I was like, well, I'm gonna dump on a whole bunch of armor and that'll make up for some of it. But he had a cool story of why his deck sucked. And I was happy to play it.
So, what do you think about one of the things we're seeing is that in Tasha's and a lot of the unearthed canon, they moved away from ability mods for uses per day, and you kind of unified proficiency bonus, and now they've gone back.
So it's a little tough. The proficiency bonus is a static thing, and it evens the playing field. Where the stat mod, like, it looks at as like, okay, well, if you are playing this class, you should be, looking to max out. So to me, I feel like it is a step in the wrong direction. Um, I think doing things by proficiency bonus, sure, at the end of the day, it's a difference of +1 if you're maxing it out. But if you're an even Steven, if you're looking to be like, well, I'm going to have 14s and 16s and everything by the time I'm 20th level, so I don't have a dump stat, well, then, that means you might have a difference of, 2 or 3 from the proficiency bonus. So that's a big deal to me.
It can be. It
I,
can be.
I mean, I'm one that I tend to max out my prime stat as soon as I can, but or at least not necessarily as soon as I can, but I'm usually working on it. So like okay, well, if I'm going to take a half feat, that's going to give me some extra stuff, but only a +1 in my prime stat, I'm okay with that.
So and now with the way things have gone with the 24 version, like you're all your feats are half feats,
Right,
essentially. So you're always able to do that
as long as you're choosing the right things,
as long
because
yeah.
sometimes I don't do that either.
Well, there is that. So
Because while it's nice to build mechanically, sometimes you want to build it thematically.
so this is our fifth class that we've now gone over. How are you feeling about the classes?
So all in all, there's nothing that I've seen that I'm unhappy with. Sure, there's some things that are clear front runners of subclasses or classes that you can play with, and there's of course things that I'm not super thrilled with. Yeah, I'm shaking my fist at spiritual weapon. But like people that I've talked to are like, well, the things you don't like, some DMs are gonna house rule that anyway. So you know, uh, I gotta spend some time and go through the core a little bit deeper and see what other changes have been made versus the style of play. Um, all in all, there's probably going to be a bastardized version of somewhere in the middle. Um, I know it. I know all of this is supposed to be backwards compatible with the other release subclasses that are out there, but I wonder, like, are they going to get a revision as well? Are we going to begin rehashing all of the other splat books, or or whatnot? I'm curious to know what the thought patterns are there.
I yeah, I imagine some of them will end up in splat books. I think like obviously they're going to put out and keep putting out new material, and to me the smart move would to be to kind of sprinkle them in slowly, not to just like
Mhm.
dump them all in,
Right,
because then people are going to be pissed like, oh, we're just buying the same thing again.
right. But
So
like, I'm gonna be ticked when we get to Wizard, because they're only doing four subclasses for each class. And like, part of being a wizard is to have all eight schools of magic, and the fact that they're not gonna have all eight, or that they don't have all eight, is some kind of frustration in me.
yeah, I can see that. Like, um, but Wizard also used to take up a lot of room as the cleric,
Sure, sure.
and now
And that's fine that they want to unify it and be like, well, we're only going to do four. um but I find it, to anyone who wants to convert their character into the current rule set, but doesn't have something that was in the core rule book before that isn't now. I imagine that's got to be frustrating. Yeah, it's like, oh well, your character got an upgrade, but mine didn't. That's not cool.
not cool at all.
So I don't know. So we're almost three-quarters of the way through this, so I guess we gotta do some mentions and what have you.
Mentions, you
So
say?
in just over a month from now is going to be PAX Unplugged. So that's in the Philadelphia Convention Center. Hop skipping away from where I currently am. So Dave and I are going to be there, for the convention. We don't have any particular, games and things, that we're set to do. But if you happen to see us and you want us to run a game or play a game or what have you, if you got a group enough people and we're not doing anything, we'd be happy to run a D&D or a Zoo Mafia, because that's kind of what we enjoy doing. Um, and we're always looking to do some more play tests for such a wonderful game as Zoo Mafia.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we won't have a game of Zoo Mafia this week. Well, we weren't playing Zoo Mafia anyway. But we wrapped up our last live play game 2 weeks ago, and next week we will be launching our new game, and that is Ted will be running his version of Zoo Mafia.
Yeah, so we've got a whole new game, a whole new setup of characters. We have one of our players is out of the country for a spell, so we're bringing in a new player to fill Carlos's spot. But Carlos will be back for our next campaign. Um, but I'm going to be running a fully anthropomorphized animal city, kind of like Zootopia. So we're not going to be relegated to the zoo and the surrounding area, but I've got a fully fleshed out zoo city that each of the mafia heads have kind of laid claim to their own territories or districts. Um, and it's gonna be a hoot. So the players are actually going to be doing something a little bit different this time. We had our session zero last week, and they're not already established criminals. They don't have a connection to one of these mafia heads already and trying to get in. We're going to start off with, hey, how do you feel about starting a life of crime? And they're going to do their first job and see how well it goes. So
What could possibly go wrong?
what could possibly go wrong? So I am very much looking forward to how this all goes, and it's going to be a grand old time, and we'll see what this all looks like by the time it all shakes out.
Also, we have another appearance coming up in addition to PAX Unplugged, where we're just there as attendees and media people like the rest of you.
But Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo Page 2 is going to be in January, the weekend of January 16th. There we'll be running some games, so you can sign up for those. And other things might wind up popping up as well. We might do some unofficial games or hangouts or what have you. But be on the lookout for some Philadelphia area convention stuff for Dave and myself over the next couple of months.
Going to be a blast. Come hang out with us.
Indeed.
All right. So,
And lastly, if you're still not connected to Zoo Mafia, but you're sitting here watching this, you definitely want to head over to Kickstarter and do that follow page. Sign up for our newsletter at zoomafiarpg.com so that you can, be aware of everything that's going on as we go live with the new campaign, hopefully sometime next year, early
yeah,
next year.
yeah, and you can find links down in the description, so you don't have to go searching too hard for those. So also we just got access to the DMG, so I'm sure we're going to start talking about that as well. I have not cracked it open yet, but curious to see what they got in there.
Yeah, I've heard some heard some things. We'll
Pe-
uh
People
we'll,
are
we'll leave
people
it
are
at that.
people are saying,
People are talking. Um, but yeah, it's new material, new things to look at. See what's there, see what's different. With our last 10 minutes, if you guys have any questions, feel free to throw up question in the chat and we'll answer.
yeah. So next week we'll be talking about whatever's after fighter. Is that Monk?
Yeah, Monk.
Yeah, I know alphabets and letters and shit.
Yeah, I was looking at the mental list today and I'm like, hey, what's next? And my brain went to Monk, and I'm like, no, there's got to be something before that. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's look at Fighter. Fighter comes before F comes before M, right?
Hmm. Well, I'm excited to take a look at Monk. Because as we've talked about, we have not really gone too far ahead with things,
Hmm.
and I am definitely. I mean, I think I glanced at some stuff like the way martial arts works is pretty cool. From what I saw, but uh, I definitely want to see what the
The Elemental Monk.
elemental monk looks like. Yeah, I mean, it's one of it's like it's a favorite, right? That was kind of lame, right? Like in execution. So we'll be talking about Warrior of Mercy, Shadow, Elements, and the Open Hand, which
Yeah,
will be
that's
our
gonna be.
subclasses.
Well, we got some good stuff to look at. We gotta determine whether or not we're going to bounce back and forth between DMG and PHB to kind of get in on
To get up to date on
in on the
things.
DMG.
Maybe we'll get really sassy and do an extra stream sometime.
Oh geez.
Anything is possible. So um, I guess we talked about what we're looking forward to playing with the fighter. What of these subclasses do you think not as a player but as a GM you'd like to like incorporate into your games?
Do you mean like a monster having these abilities, or me running a game for someone playing one of those?
For as an adversary or frenemy or rival players.
So again, I'm going to lean heavily towards Battle Master and Champion. I feel like both of them lean heavily towards a powerful foe. Especially when you mix in the actual core fighter abilities, be like, yeah, he passed that save all right.
That's true. It's like
uh
Legendary resistance light.
Yeah, I mean you've got the just yes, legendary resistance he passes, but be like, oh, I'm gonna re-roll this and you know add the bonus that's through the roof. Um, it can be quite crazy. But to have somebody who's mobile and tactical on the battlefield and dishing out a crap ton of damage, like some players might not be prepared to handle that level of tactics. Um, and I've played some battles that some enemies have done stuff like that before, but just emulating something that a player character can do, it can be absolutely crazy. It's like, okay, second wind, and he moves over here, and now he's going to make another strike and do this thing here, and then he's going to use this maneuver that allows him to move over here and do that. It can be utterly crazy.
Yeah, I think also the ability to kind of pick off certain abilities from the fighter's features, and maybe even if you're not like wholly running an NPC that's got the class levels per se, but you can like
Mhm.
pick some of those features and sprinkle them throughout your monsters.
Yep, absolutely. I think there'll be a lot of fun. What about you? You thinking along the same lines I am, or
I think actually the Psy Warrior would probably be fun to use, just because they have different abilities, and they definitely have those Jedi like quality, and also like they're pretty decent at buffing,
sure?
and buffing their allies. Whether
So you
it's
want to bring a Darth Vader character and wreck house on people?
basically whether it's they have the extra ability to move allies around the battlefield or protect them from damage, and also they have the ability to um have some control effects as well. So, push them into some blade barriers or something. Maybe ones that they
Sure, sure,
themselves
sure, sure.
cast.
So
Hmm.
all in all, a Darth Vader style, you know, adversary would be very problematic if you ratchet him up to that level.
Yeah, for sure. So, if there's no questions, I think we've gone over everything.
All right. Well, we'll end a little bit early, and we'll see you all next week as we you know, do some mantras and get into the monk.
Right, so until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.